what I believe it means to be a man, I believe it means to be. It's that motherfucker who people shouldn't understand. It's that guy that literally puts everything before himself. Everything before himself. Family, responsibility. Literally, you're the foundation. Which is why I talk about you have to make sure that you're ready to be a man and have a family and take on these responsibilities of life, because you literally have to shoulder so much of the suffering. You don't want to see your wife suffer. You don't want to see your kids suffer. Yeah, there's a point with kids have to learn to live with suffering. Sure. It's important. But you want to make sure you have the answers. If you don't have the answers, make sure that you know how to get the answers. You want to make sure that you have the money. You want to make sure that you don't put your family in a situation that they're in dire straits or you make these fucked up moves. And so it's the biggest responsibility in the fucking world. It is the biggest responsibility in the fucking world, which is why I'm always talking about be uncomfortable. Do something that sucks every day, because you're constantly trying to sharpen that sword as a man. And the sword is your fucking brain. Because you have to shoulder more than your share of the fucking task. 100% meant something. All the time. I, for a long time, was probably the most unbalanced motherfucker on the planet Earth. And I took great pride in that. It was on purpose. It was on purpose because I knew for me to get to where I wanted to go, where I had to go, there could be no balance. There could be no, 8 hours a day I do this. No. It had to be, I'm such in a fucked up spot in my life, in such a dark place, that if I don't dedicate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 a year to becoming a better human being, it's not gonna happen. If I don't fix myself, I won't be good for anybody. So yeah, I became very unbalanced for a long time. Balance is important, but you have to first go to war with yourself. You gotta figure out what you're about and be proud of who you are before you start to get that teeter-totter nice and balanced out. So if you read my book and you see what goes on, you'll see how many mistakes I make along the way, trying to find balance, trying to find peace in myself, and I fucked myself all up. I'm having relationships, I'm having, I get a girl, knocked up, she's pregnant. I'm in the worst spot of my fucking life. I don't have a real job, I'm going through SEAL training, I haven't graduated SEAL training, I'm going back through SEAL training for the 3rd time, and now I have a girl that's pregnant. I'm all over the fucking place. I have no money, I have nothing. And I'm establishing a life with a family, and I'm all fucked up. So, a lot of us get in situations where we start establishing all these different things and popping all these different pop-up boxes, and our life is fucked. Because we haven't fixed ourselves. Until you fix yourself, don't start another journey before you finish your own journey first. Or not finish it, but at least get a good, foot start into it. And I fell into that several times, into that whole man thing. Get a family, do this, do that. And I'm jacked up. I'm insecure. I have all kind of issues going on. So I'm bringing all these issues into a family. And all that does is destroy your family. So what it means to be a man, it means everything. It means not sleeping sometimes. It means sometimes, you go without to make sure that your family goes forward. And if not your family, maybe you're in combat, maybe you're in a situation. You have to always make sure that you're doing for others before you do for yourself. But to do that, you gotta make sure you are a hard motherfucker. Because only a hard motherfucker can do that. Only a hard motherfucker can be in a situation that says, hey man, I'm at Ranger School right now, we're all fucking hungry as shit. And we're all men out here. But guess what, brother? Take that, man. You look like you need it more than me. You're starving, your stomach's fucking inside out, you've lost 56 pounds, and you're dying inside. But a man looks at another motherfucker and says, hey man, fucking take that, brother. So a man, in other words, is a fucking leader. A man's a leader. So, and that is the fucking hardest thing. Being a leader is a motherfucker, man. You're oftentimes unhappy. People don't like you. People fucking hate you. People do not understand you. But you always have to make the best decision. And that takes a lot of balls.
Here you are, suffering away. What makes it worthwhile? Rights? You're completely out. You have no idea what you're it's almost impossible to describe how bad an idea that is. Responsibility. That's what gives life meaning. It's like lift a load. Then you can tolerate yourself, right? Because look at, you're useless, easily hurt, easily killed. Why should you have any self-respect? That's the story of the fall. Pick something up and carry it. Make it heavy enough so that you can think, yeah, well, useless as I am, at least I could move that from there to there. Well, what's really cool about that is that when I talk to these crowds about this, the men's eyes light up. And that's very, like, I've seen that phenomenon because I've been talking about this mythological material for a long time. And I can see when I'm watching crowds, people, you know, their eyebrows lift, their eyes light up because I put something together for them. And that's what mythological stories do. So I'm not taking responsibility for that. That's what the stories do. So I say the story and people go click, 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 you know, and their eyes light up. But this responsibility thing, that's a whole new order of this, is that young men are so hungry for that, it is unbelievable. For men, there's nothing but responsibility. You know, I was watching The Simpsons the other day. I watched the first Simpsons episode and I deconstructed it. And so it's really interesting. So what happens in the first Simpson episode is that it's Christmas and Homer and Marge are going to buy some Christmas presents, but Homer doesn't get his Christmas bonus. And so he's absolutely crushed by that. And that actually is a recurring theme in The Simpsons, where Homer loses his job or something like that, or can't make enough money. He's completely crushed. Even though he's kind of useless, bumbling, laughing fool of a guy, you know, the thing that gives that show its soul is that he's still oriented towards his family. That's what makes him honorable, is that foolish as he is, he's decided to adopt responsibility for his family and to try to bear that. And so he's a holy fool. He's not a complete fool. And it's so interesting watching the story because he suffers dreadfully as a consequence of not being able to fulfill his responsibility. Well, that's for men. Women have their sets of responsibilities. They're not the same, right? Because they're complicated, because women, of course, have to take primary responsibility for having infants at least, but then also for caring for them. They're structured differently than men. For biological necessity, even if it's not a psychological issue, and it's also partly a psychological issue. Women know what they have to do. Men have to figure out what they have to do. And if they have nothing worth living for, then they stay Peter Pan. And why the hell not? Because the alternative to valued responsibility is impulsive, low-class pleasure. And you saw that in the Pinocchio story, right? That's Pleasure Island. It's like, well, why lift a load if there's nothing in it for you? That's another thing that we're doing to men that's a very bad idea. And to boys. It's like, you're pathological and oppressive. It's like, fine then, why the hell am I going to play? If that's the situation, if I get no credit for bearing responsibility, you could bloody well be sure I'm not going to bear any. But then, you know, your life is useless and meaningless, and you're full of self-contempt and nihilism, and that's not good. And so that's why I think, that's what I think's going on at a deeper level with regards to men needing this direction. A man has to decide that he's going to do something. Life has meaning with responsibility. The more responsibility you take on, the more meaning your life has. And the higher degree of responsibility that you agree voluntarily to try to bear, the richer your life will be. And no one's ever told that, and it's the case. You know, it's like you have 4 kids, say, well, that's plenty of responsibility. You're going to have meaning. It's going to be rough, you know, because it's complicated. You have a complicated job and you try to help the careers of the people around you. You try to solve tough problems and aid suffering and do all of that. It's like, it's weight, it's responsibility, but there's glory in it. There's real glory in it. There's deep meaning in it. And you're way more than you think, man. Stand up, do something difficult. Do something difficult and heroic, right? Burst out of your bonds. It's like, that's a good message. It's a necessary message, because we have to be more than we are, because if we aren't, we're not going to survive.